Good day, Brian Maxted here from Holloway, and here with my friend Alex.
How's it going? How are you?
Good to see you.
Good, nice seeing you. Welcome.
Glad to be out of the office and
welcome to mine.
yeah, into your office. So yeah, why don't you, if you don't mind, just say a little bit about yourself, what you do for Holloway.
So I'm Alex Parsons. I'm the Ag Operations Manager here at Holloway, and I'm in charge of the Ag Services, so the grinding and the amendment spraying. So today we're out here with our grinder out here in Mendota.
Fantastic. Well, really excited to be out here with you, and we'll take a drive around and see what's going on out here.
Perfect. Let's take a ride.
Love it. We're out on a farm here in Mendota.
Mendota, yeah. So we're about 30 minutes from Fireball and about 30 minutes from Mendota, kind of out here off of I-5.
Yeah, it's just fascinating being out in this particular part of the ag world, because the acreage here just is immense as far as what the actual fields end up being. So instead of being 40-acre patches or 50-acre, 100-acre patches, I mean, these are massive.
These are right here. What we're working on right now is about 100-acre 50 blocks. We're working, actually, this is about a full section, so it's about right around 600 acres is where we're working right now.
So 600 acres of what's being redeveloped. So this used to be, what was here before?
So this was almonds,
So almonds.
Multiple varieties. I can't remember exactly what varieties, but multiple varieties. And it's, yeah, we've just started block by block kind of going through it.
Right, fascinating. So talk a little bit about the process as we drive around, and obviously we're seeing some grinding happening over here, but when a grower decides that, hey, this field is getting past its useful life, what's the process that they go by to get it ready for redevelopment and then start to pull out the old trees?
So I figure most farmers are probably going off of either, well, right now it's either going to be water issues, or the tree is just kind of provided its life.
Past its useful life.
It's way past its date, its prime. So this is what we're doing right now. These trees are past their prime.
So they were 20 to 25 plus year old trees.
Yeah, I'm guessing they're probably somewhere in their 20s.
Okay.
That's what I would guess. These ones may be just a tad younger.
Okay.
But the first stuff we did was very old. I'd probably say 20 plus.
20 plus. And so the grower decides this time. So in that process, once that decision's made, what's the next steps that the growers are thinking about on getting ready to remove?
So what they're doing, they're getting ready for us to come and remove. How do they want to do it? Do they want to incorporate it? Do they want to haul it off once it's ground down?
Right.
First, what are they going to go back into? Right. You know, are they going to go back into trees? Are they going to go back into row crops, which I highly doubt? But are they going to go back into pistachios? So they're trying to figure out what their next move is, and then that's where we come in after that. Is we come in and start removing the trees for them.
So first conversation with the grower is, hey, we decided that this orchard is past its useful life. We're not going to look to harvest it anymore. Growers looking to redevelop something else, makes the decision most often, but not always, on what it's going to go back into. There are occasions where they are decided to remove but don't know the plan for going in next.
Correct.
Well, usually they do.
Usually they do. 9 times out of 10.
Right, they know what they're going into, so that's part of the thought plan and the whole removal process is, hey, how do we get it ready? You know, that grave to cradle process that is very much part of our Ag Services platform on redeveloping this field. And so here, as we drive around looking at it, the process is actually going by row for row removal. So first it's removal of the irrigation. Well, first it's what? The dig?
So we do a 1-800 USA. I call it a USA or a 1-800 dig. Make sure there's no pipelines, which where we're at right now, we do actually have a field. There's actually 3 pipelines that run diagonal through the field. So it made it a little tougher, but you want to make sure those are free and clear. So you don't want to have any issues.
Right, understand where the existing infrastructure is, whether it's a water pipeline or a gas pipeline or electrical line, whatever it is.
Exactly.
That's the safety first, making sure not only for obviously damaging the field, but also for our operators. We're talking about electrical lines or gas lines. You want to make sure you get that labeled out and that communication with our operators.
Yep. And another thing we try to find out is if they're going to reuse any of the existing water lines, because that's a lot of guys are starting to reuse stuff.
Right.
Stuff's getting more expensive.
Sure.
So they're trying to reuse as much as possible. So like out here, they weren't so worried about their existing water lines. They're going into something completely different system. So cool. We're good to go.
You don't have to worry about that as
yeah,
you remove
makes it
the
easy.
trees. Yeah, you don't think about it. But there are instances where you do, and you want to be very thoughtful as we go around and do that. So in this instance, all right, we're
kind of in the mid. We're at the tail end of what we've been doing here. So we started with pulling out the trees. We use an excavator or a couple of them, and you go 2 rows at a time, and you put each row into one pile. So 2 rows into one pile, and lay it out across the field. Then we've come through, which you can kind of see. We've piled it up. We left gaps every so often to make it easy, and we just pushed those from those gaps. We pushed them into the center. I mean,
it's always just amazing to me to come out and watch a field in the process of redevelopment, because these are strong, big trees, and they get plucked out pretty quickly with those excavators, you know, and then moved around and piled up, and it's in these neat rows that the removal process ends up, you know, stacking them. To make it more efficient for us to come through and grind it. So,
yeah, the less movement we have to make, the faster we can get through the field.
Right.
You know, that time is money, money is time.
And not only is that the case for us, but also for the grower. You know, they want to put this field back in production, and and there's a finite number of hours and days that the grower often has, that more days and weeks the grower often has in order to get a field ready, you know, we have only so many number of units, and same with other providers, and so getting that scheduled out at the right time and meeting those expectations is a big part of the front end conversations and loading.
What nice part about the way we do this is I can actually guesstimate how long it takes us to get across, I call it a line. It usually takes us anywhere, depending on how many trees, but usually anywhere from two shifts, and I say 2 shifts because right now we're working 20 hours a day.
Right.
So we're running 2 shifts. So
20 hours a day.
20 hours.
So 10-hour shifts.
Yeah. So actually, we're running 11 hours. My guys in the morning and my guys in the evening are overlapping a little bit. They overlap on the start and end, but they're helping out my night guy as well, as far as fueling and greasing and stuff. We're trying to get as much run time as we can to be productive, but also allowing us a couple hours at least to do maintenance.
Preventative maintenance.
Yeah, preventative maintenance, greasing, simple fueling.
Sure.
Yeah. So
so stack them up, and then we'll drive back down eventually and see the grinder.
Yep.
And then there's a big grapple that comes and puts it back in the grinder. And we'll look at that when we get back here.
So the same thing happens with the same excavator that pulled them out. We used to put them into the grinder. Right. So.
And that grinder is a 1,000 horsepower motor.
Yep.
It's big iron, big motors.
It's a 2022. I think it's a 2022 6800 Vermeer.
Man, watching that thing eat,
I love it.
Yeah, it's
just
massive iron doing massive amounts of destruction and then reconstruction into wood chips. So let's talk a little about the choices that the farmer has when we're doing a redevelopment, as far as what to do with this organic matter after the field is removed and ground up.
Okay.
And so all these piles that we're seeing here obviously is somewhat of a finished process after grinding. And these are not chipped but ground. And so now the farmer has choices of what to do with this. They used to burn it often, but can't really do it anymore.
No, there's less and less cogens.
Right, and then so that's one option, is if there's a contract to go to cogens. There's the getting this actually loaded up, all this organic matter into trucks and shipped off to a cogen. But assuming there's not a contract with the cogen, what are the farmer's choices to do with all this organic matter that's obviously sitting here in pretty massive piles?
So one of the options is, of course, cogens, if you're able to, if you're lucky enough to, I guess. Another one is reincorporating into the soil, which the Air Board, San Joaquin Valley Air Pollution District, is giving incentives. So there is a program that allows the farmer to apply for it. We spread it back. After it's ground up, the wood chips get put back out on the field, spread back, which we'll be actually going right over to right now. And they have to incorporate it in some way, and then they get their funding.
Right.
Which I think it varies. I can't remember the exact numbers, but it's a good amount of chunk of change back for the farmer.
Right, so let's get into the whole reincorporation as an option in a second here. But so the three basic choices are removal, where you're taking the wood chips off site. It's going to cogen, it's going to a composter, it's going to some other place off the farm.
Correct.
Right, there used to be burning, but again, pretty much by regulations can't do unless you're a very small operator, less than 10 acres. I can't remember the exact amount, but it's pretty small. And they're trying to really eliminate that for the air pollution issues and the CO2 release that ultimately brings. Or reincorporation, which is one of the areas that the Air Board's incentivizing.
They're really pushing that.
Yeah, to put that organic matter back into the ground. And so, I can see over here, this is obviously a place that we've decided we've spread the chips back. And so, again, there's programs for that. The Air Board will pay a grower, I think it's something, if I recall correctly, like $650 an acre to reincorporate ground wood chips, old orchards back into the ground. And so $650 per acre. And so, and that's a grant program, and there's different ways that you would have to apply for, and we've been able to help many of our growers, successfully apply for those grants and receive that money from the Air Board, which is great. It exists, and so it's certainly something that the farmers should consider now. It's always a cost-benefit analysis because with reincorporation, there's different ways to reincorporate it, different costs to reincorporate it, and different challenges that exist after reincorporation. So talk a little bit about the choices that this particular farmer made in reincorporation, and some of the benefits and potential things to look out for in the process.
So early on, they thought incorporation they weren't sure about it. Now that after quite a few years, they figured out that it does have some beneficial use. As far as going back into the soil once it breaks down, you have that nitrogen content, you have some of that organic matter back in the soil. Right. So it is providing some beneficial use for the ground, for the soil. The other nice part about it is it's faster. That's our biggest one, I would say. You can get this spread out in days. As opposed to shipping it out somewhere, right? Yeah. So the benefits, and so the organic matter, putting that back in the soil is one of them. Being able to take care of the massive amounts. You're talking about 25 to 50 tons per acre of organic, chips you have to deal with. Oh yeah.
And so that's a lot to ship off. A pretty, hefty cost to ship off. And so reincorporation could be an economical solution. Now, one of the things that the growers have to look for incorporation when they're reincorporating is obviously how it gets reincorporated, how evenly the wood chips get mixed in,
uniformity,
in the uniformity, both for going back into whatever they're doing, and that's part of the consideration of what's going next. But then also the farmer's got to think about the nitrogen to carbon ratio. There's a lot of carbons going back into this ground by having these wood chips, this organic matter going back in, and so they need to offset that with additional nitrogen to help break down that material over time. So that's one of the things that I'm assuming should be considered as part of the process, is that nitrogen to carbon ratio.
Another one is what they're going back into. If you're planting back into something different, it works out perfect. This farmer actually is going back in, I believe, into pistachios. So the wood chips are great. It's going to take a while for them to break down. They're not going to have any issues with harvesting, which has been one thing that people have been worried about. But in this instance, it's going to work out great for them. They've got a good little cover and beneficial use out of it once it breaks down.
Right. So pistachios will take 6 years or so to get to really any sort of meaningful production. And so it's going to be some time for the wood chips to really have their natural decomposition happening there. And also harvesting for pistachios don't involve the orchard floor, and so you're not worried about bringing that material back up at harvest, which is so going from almost pistachios, that's a benefit that they're looking at there in doing that. Now obviously going into alfalfa, for example, could be beneficial, but you have to think about harvest when going into that.
Exactly.
And so what you go into next as a consideration, how quickly and how much nitrogen you have to add to break down that material as all part of the analysis versus hauling off for other solutions.
And size makes a big difference. We try to keep ours pretty as small as we can go for the farmer to help it break down that much faster.
Sure.
Which has been one of the things that I have enjoyed doing, because it, for one, it looks better than a big old chip sitting out in the middle of that field.
Right.
That ours is ground down a heck of a lot finer. It's not the size of what you would see in your garden, you know, that you would get in a bag or something, but it's a lot, once it gets incorporated and breaks down, it's a heck of a lot easier to break down.
Yeah, totally. We're looking at these piles right here, and you can see there's a fair amount of fines that, you know, particle size matters when it comes to decomposition. It's the same with a lot of minerals in the soil with ag. The smaller the particle, the easier it is to break down and become ultimately plant available in the future. And then obviously there's different sizings that happen as well. And so, but making it as fine as possible for the farmer, and it's somewhat of a cost benefit, right? Because the finer the process, it takes some more time and more energy to do so.
Correct.
So there's a cost associated with that, and those are all trade-offs that ultimately the farmer's got to consider. Now, okay, you've put these trees in, and I'm always just entertained watching again this horsepower work. But
it's amazing.
You come out with these stacks. Now the orchard floor otherwise, chiseling, roots. Talk a little bit about other things the farmer should or doesn't need to be considering depending on what's happening next in the process on getting this field ready for development.
Again, it always comes down to what the farmer wants to do. I've been around where some farmers, they will go through on a field like this, 150 acres, they'll go through, chisel it to try to pull up all those roots. We've had projects like that before to try to get out as much. They'll send a hand crew through to try to get as much out as possible. Then others, like I think what they're doing here, they're chiseling it, trying to get that. They're just more worried about the incorporation,
right? And
then they're going to come in and plant. Right. So of course they're going to do their deep ripping and stuff like that too, but as far as incorporation, they're not as worried about it. It just depends on what the farmer wants to do, all in their plan.
Right, but in having those conversations and understanding, hey, what are you doing next, and what does this need to look like afterwards?
Oh yeah.
And then what's the usual turnaround time from? So you've removed, you've chipped, you've spread back in. What's the time on a, to say for this job it will take to do, this is a 160 acre block approximately, right? And so what's the average time you're looking at to do a 160 acre block from start to finish?
So it'll take, let's see, about roughly 10 acres a day to remove. So you're looking at about 15 days of removal.
Right.
And of course there's some in between in there, because you have to let the trees kind of dry. Trees always grind better when they're a little drier.
So you have to pull the irrigation systems and let those, take away the.
But as far as when we come in, as soon as they pull the irrigation systems or the lines or sprinklers or whatever they may have, it'll take us on 150 acres about 15 days to remove the trees and stack them. Then we try to stay about 4 to 5 weeks behind with the grinder. That's kind of a good area. The air board always said 6 weeks to let a tree dry out before you can burn it. So that's a pretty good window for us.
Well, it's just such a beautiful ballet of destruction and recreation when you're talking about this process. Yeah, no, please take it. And it's amazing to think that this ballet happens again on a 20 hour day in day out basis.
Yeah.
And it's a part of farming that's an important part of farming, is getting the field ready for its next highest and best use.
Yep.
And
turnaround time is always key when trying to do a job like this. You want to try to get in as fast as you can, but you also want to do a good quality job, which is, I'm lucky I've got quite a few guys here that they like doing that quality job. Yeah,
well, it sounds like when I was a boy, being able to destruct things at a large scale, it's just like a dream job come true. So being able to at least watch it here is always fun.
Well, think about it. I get to play with Tonka toys all day, Brian.
Yeah, exactly. That's a fun part of what we do.
It is. That's what makes it enjoyable.
Well, Alex, I really appreciate the time.
Not a problem.
love to come back when we're getting ready for redevelopment, whether it be this field or a similar field that is going back into that redevelopment, so we can talk about what we are thinking for in that process. How we're testing the soils and how we're thinking about the next stage of that cradle process.
Yeah.
But really, just appreciate your
Not
time
a problem.
today. It was
Thanks
fun
for
to
riding
drive around and see what's happening in the field here. And
sorry, the truck's a little dirty. I'm trying to keep your old truck nice and clean.
As a work truck, it's doing well, so it's good to see. So,
yeah.
Good to see you, my friend.
Thank you. Thanks for coming out.